Resident Evil 7 will no doubt be a divisive entry in the series, but it has one thing going for it that the last two main series entries did not. It looks scary. Welcome to Give It Thought, I'm Jake, and thank you for joining me for the top 10 things you should know about Resident Evil 7 before its release. And as a side note, these are in no particular order except for maybe number 1, so let's get started with number 10. Number 10 is that this game is in first person. I know this is a well-known fact, but it had to make the list. All previous Resident Evil games were from at least one type of third-person view, with Resident Evil 4 changing it to an over-the-shoulder viewpoint. This was, according to the game's producer, not a decision that was made lightly. According to him, the first-person viewpoint was done because it was the most advantageous way to present horror to the player. I guess he played Outlast in PT. In all honesty, I know this is going to upset a lot of people, and there's even one of those online petitions that wants Resident Evil 7 to go back to third person, but we all know how often those work. I'll be interested to see how Capcom will handle the new perspective, but you know, a lot of others will not be interested at all. Number 9 is that Resident Evil 7 is a direct sequel to Resident Evil 6. Just going by the promotional images and trailers, you would think this game is a reboot, or at the least, set far enough away that the previous entries in the series just wouldn't come into play. We'll get more into the setting in an upcoming entry, but it just looks so different that it would lead players to think that it doesn't fit into the timeline in the normal numerical fashion. Resident Evil 7 is set to have an all-new cast of characters, but I have a feeling we'll see some old faces by the end. The game's producer confirmed the fact that this will be a continuation a while ago, and that it will take place 4 years after Resident Evil 6. That has me curious as to how the series defining elements will come into play here. In other words, what will Umbrella have to do with this place? Number 8 is that there are no quick time events. You know those little instances in cutscenes that make you press a specific button to avoid a giant machete swinging zombie, or when you press B to deftly avoid falling off a cliff? Yeah, those aren't in this game, and it's a good thing too because QTEs just bogged down the entire experience of Resident Evil 5 and 6. I thought they were manageable in Resident Evil 4, but by 6 they were just everywhere. Thankfully, Resident Evil 7 will not be falling back on that tired gaming convention. It makes me wonder how many cutscenes will be in the game too, because without the QTEs to draw them out, I'm betting there will be fewer of them. At the least, they will be shorter. Number 7 is that there are ghosts in Resident Evil 7. I know, it's weird. If you played the beginning hour demo, then you know there are a ton of references to the occult, and essentially it paints the game as a glorified ghost story. The game's director has been quick to shoot down these presumptions though. In a blog post, he said that all of the ghostly stuff will make sense in the end, and that Resident Evil has its own set of rules, and those have not been thrown out here. So I'm guessing ghosts will be explained by some kind of bizarre biohazardous chemical, or they could just explain them the old Scooby-Doo way and just have them be holograms. That would be smart. Coming in at number 6 is that herbs are back. I know this was a big part of Resident Evil fans' rage when it came to Resident Evil 6. Well, maybe not that big of a part of it, but I know there were more than a few people that thought, no herbs? What? Herbs have been a staple in the series since the very beginning, and Capcom's decision to remove those just seems like one of those oversimplifications that the game did not need. So many games do that nowadays when they streamline features, and they just lose their identity. There's no arguing that Resident Evil 6 lost its identity because of that, and just the inclusion of herbs again will make Resident Evil 7 feel more like a classic Resident Evil game. Number 5 is that Resident Evil 7 is clearly influenced by the 1970s film The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Just looking at the game's aesthetics, especially that farmhouse that the main character gets trapped in, you can't help but notice the similarities. If you've somehow stayed away from this movie and the tons of remakes it has inspired, it features a cast of young hippies that wander into a farmhouse in Texas and just get butchered by this big old guy, affectionately known as Leatherface. But the creepiest part of the movie is the family that gave birth to Leatherface. They collect human bones and straight up eat people and do just about any other morbid thing you could imagine. If you have not watched this horror classic, it still holds up, so if you have the time, check it out. But speaking of weird families, hitting number 4 on the list is the Baker family. You need to know these freaks because they seem to be the main antagonists of the game. They seem to be. I don't think they are, but Capcom has been pretty liberal with showing them in trailers and all those demos. Clearly, they too were inspired by the family in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but they take things in a whole new direction, an even creepier direction. The family consists of Jack, Marguerite, and Lucas Baker, and boy are they ripped right out of a Rob Zombie fantasy. I'm going to stay away from specific details as to avoid spoilers, but these family members have some weird supernatural abilities, like super strength and some kind of stealth abilities. They could just be really sneaky, but well, if you've played the demos, then you know what I mean. All in all, I can't wait to get to know the Baker family better. I mean, in the game, not in real life. Nope, not in real life at all. Number 3 is that there will be fewer enemies. In other words, you're not going to be mowing down zombies like a Dead Rising game. According to the game's producer, this game will be set on a more intimate scale of horror, and having less but more meaningful enemies will create that kind of feeling. Capcom wanted to make each encounter something special and wanted each encounter to feel like it's leading up to something. The real big bad of this game has yet to be revealed, but if we are leading up to him or her or it throughout the game, hopefully the payoff will be good. And coming in at number 2 is the game's length. A lot of horror games have the tendency of being either too long or too short. Some games quickly build tension and try to have the payoff early, and while others, Alien Isolation, seem like they just shove content in just to make the game longer and end up hurting the overall experience. According to multiple outlets, the length of time needed to complete Resident Evil 7 will be around 15 hours. That's a pretty decent length for a single player game. Most clock in at around 8 to 10 hours, so it makes me wonder if Resident Evil 7 will be able to hold the tension for that amount of time. We know DLC is on the way too, which will add a few more hours to the game. This fact, more than it being first person or having VR capabilities, has me worried. And finally, the number 1 entry on this list is that the game does, in fact, have combat. The reason I saved this for number 1 is because so many people seem to believe that this game is like Amnesia or PT and that combat is non-existent. I think Capcom can change a lot of things about Resident Evil for Resident Evil 7, but there's no way they take out the combat. Sure, there are instances in the game that will likely take pages out of games like Outlast's playbook, where you'll be forced to run and hide or straight up avoid enemies, but overall combat will have its place. The player character, Ethan, will have access to weapons like a pistol and a shotgun, and in close quarters, you can whip out your pocket knife to jab into some zombies. Hopefully we'll get our hands on a machete or something eventually because, pocket knives are fairly tiny, but I guess it'll get the job done. And that's my list. Resident Evil 7 comes out this coming Tuesday on January the 24th, so that will likely be our first brush with a AAA game this year. So if I missed anything or you have any thoughts on Resident Evil 7, be sure to tell me down below. And that's where I'm going to wrap things up for today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at GiveItThought1 for all kinds of shenanigans. And thank you so much for watching. And remember, give thought to everything.